What's going on with Alek Manoah? He had a bad start. He had a good start. What is going on in Blue Jays land?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You guys can follow us on Twitter, Braden5Wasco, Carter First 2, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. It was a very interesting weekend in Blue Jays land as they, of course, dropped the first game 3-2 against the Twins. Then a 10-8 win, so the bats wake up a little bit. And then finally a 5-1 loss on Sunday. Just to let you guys know, we are headed to Toronto May 17th to the 20th for the Tampa Rays series this coming weekend. It's going to be fun. I'm pumped. It's country night. Everybody's sort of getting ready. Our roommate Justin Powers is coming with us, as well as my brother Jarvis Iwasco. It's going to be a ton of fun. And honestly, it's just depending on what kind of baseball you're going to get. I think we saw a bunch of different brands of Toronto Blue Jays baseball this weekend, and it sucked but was also entertaining. Carter, just as the weekend as a whole for you. Start there.
Yeah, what a weird weekend. To start off, I don't know what's going on with my light here. This is just completely irritating me. Sometimes I'm bright, sometimes I'm not. I got to figure this out eventually, but we're going to move on from that. As for Toronto Blue Jays baseball, I feel a lot more positive, I feel like, about it than I maybe should, because we did lose another series, but you go to Friday's game, it's a tough 3-2 loss, just that typical Blue Jays brand of baseball. And then you go to Saturday, the season almost felt like it was over. I thought we were going to pack it in. We were going to get swept by the Twins, what it felt like. And then obviously the comeback for the Ages game of the year on Saturday. Felt like I was on top of the world after that. And then you go today, Alek Manoah out of nowhere looks like the greatest pitcher alive and still doesn't get a win, even though he went 7 innings with no earned runs. Didn't have that on my bingo card, but a very weird weekend for Toronto Blue Jays baseball. Like I said, a lot I think to be positive about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, honestly, let's start with the elephant in the room, and that's, of course, Alek Manoah. It's been an interesting season and a half for Alek Manoah. We've talked about it a tons. He was at an all-time low, I think, and it was just sort of, was he going to get another opportunity with this team? And, of course, that opportunity came with Bowden Francis and Yariel Rodriguez both being out, of course, on the IL. He comes in for his first appearance, and it looks bad, Carter. It looked really bad. I was not impressed at all. There was nothing saying to me that this guy deserved one more opportunity. But yet, he comes out today and looks like an absolute stud. Looks like he was back to old Alek Manoah days of pounding the zone and getting outs. Of course, his line today, 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 3 runs given up, 0 earned, 6 strikeouts, a walk, and 1 home run given up. It's Carter, I got so many thoughts on Alek Manoah. I want to start on, I think, the biggest component of this that we talked about a ton was his location. He wasn't able to locate pitches, and he was leaving a lot over the zone. I know me and you have a little bit of a different take on this. After watching yesterday's game, what I've sort of realized is Alek Manoah pitches the same way. And I know we talked about this a little bit, and I wasn't getting my thoughts clear, I don't think. But Alek Manoah pitches the same way. If he's having a bad day or if he's having a good day, Alek Manoah goes at each day the same. And he's going to try to pound balls in the strike zone all the time. He's not throwing a ton of stuff outside. And when he does, it's all over the map, it seems like. And Alek Manoah is at his best when he is pounding the zone. And I think that's a big component what makes Alek Manoah great when he is pitching well. So when I was saying to you that he was leaving pitches in the zone, some of them were pretty hittable to even today. But you can tell that he had his stuff. And a little bit of my head is thinking, is this a good way to go about it or a bad way to go about it? And I think we've seen the good and the bad in Alek Manoah's last 2 starts here. He's pounding the zone, but he necessarily doesn't have his stuff, and he's not locating exactly where he wants to be. And I think for Alek Manoah to be good, he has to be locating exactly how he wants to be, because otherwise those pitches get crushed. And we've seen sort of the duality of Alek Manoah so far this season. He had a terrible start where you could tell he'd hit the zone and he was still trying to pound the zone, but it wasn't where he wanted it to be. Then it goes to this game, and it looked like he was wherever our catcher was setting up. Alek Manoah was dotting it, like it was right exactly where he wanted it to be. And I think that's the sort of tough part of Alek Manoah, is one day it could not be on, and the next day it could be. And it doesn't seem to affect him a whole lot. Like, I think he understands that he's doing what he's trying to do, which is maybe not executed to perfection. And you have to be perfect, I think, in pitching that way. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, with Alek Manoah, I think you're right in the sense where he is just trying to pound the zone. The biggest thing is with Alek Manoah, just does he have his command? Does he not have his command? And when you said if he's not locating, he's going to get crushed, I feel like you could say that about any pitcher. If they're not locating their pitches, they're throwing balls over the middle. Unless they're throwing 102 miles an hour, they're a little bit more likely to get away with it with that high velo. But if you're not locating, you're going to get crushed in the MLB. These hitters are so good. If you're throwing middle fastballs, middle sliders, whatever it is, they are going to get absolutely annihilated. But with Alek Manoah, his biggest thing is consistency. As we saw that in AAA, he'd have a really good start, and then he'd have a horrible start. We just want something decent. We want him to give this team a chance to win game in and game out. Obviously, there's going to be some blow-up games. You're not going to have your stuff every single day. But look, just the tale of two games with Alek Manoah. You go into this first game, he walks 4, hits a batter, gives up 6 earned. And then you go to this game, and he's the most efficient pitcher I've ever seen. I think you said 78 pitches, and that was over 7 innings. I would have been more than fine with letting him go back out in the 8th. I thought he looked great the entire day. With his location for Alek Manoah today, I think it was the biggest thing, like I said, was command. Whereas in that first game against the Nationals, he was throwing sliders over the middle, fastballs over the middle. And then if he was missing the strike zone, he was missing it by 1.5 feet. It was either a right down the middle pitch, whatever it was he was throwing, or it wasn't even close to the strike zone. Where you had today with Alek Manoah, his command was unbelievable. He's hitting corners. He's getting ahead in counts, which is such a huge thing for him as well, because he doesn't feel like he has to hit the strike zone when you're up 0-2 in a count, up 1-2 in a count. So that was a huge thing for Alek Manoah. One thing that I noticed with Alek Manoah all the time is he does seem like a great teammate. Ernie Clement makes an error. I believe it was in the 3rd inning, and he was the first one to say, it's okay, we'll get it back. Then Ernie Clement, big double play ball, first one to hype him up. But with Alek Manoah, I find that if things don't go well, he gets one bad break, he has a very hard time recovering. And that's sort of what happened with him in the 7th inning, because the same thing, Ernie Clement just had a bad day in the field. He was horrible. He had 2 routine ground balls to him on errors. He had another throw, I think it was in the top of the 9th, that he threw Vladdy up the baseline, had to make a swipe tag, saved him there as well. Not great from Ernie Clement. But then you see it with Alek Manoah. He hit right after that. Then a ground ball, IKF, good play. And then I'm not really blaming Alek Manoah for this one. Yeah, the changeup was high, but it was like 3 inches high and 3 inches out of the zone. My big thing for that comes back to John Schneider. I don't know why we're pitching to Carlos Santana in that spot, especially when he had a home run in both games earlier in that series, and just has a huge history of absolutely raking against the Toronto Blue Jays. I think you load the bases there. You let Alek Manoah pitch to whoever would be behind Carlos Santana. I'd have to look at the lineup right now. I can't remember off the top of my head. But with Alek Manoah, in totality, I think he was unbelievable today. Like I said, it would have been fine seeing him go up for the 8th inning, only being at 78 pitches. Just needed consistency out of Alek Manoah. But today, I'm going to end it with this. Today, Alek Manoah felt a lot like 2022, and that was very exciting to watch as a fan.
100%. And that would have been Vasquez, who went 0 for 4 today. And so that's where you got to look at, okay, who is known to kill us? And let's not give them the opportunity to put the nail in the coffin, especially on a day when you can obviously tell that the offense isn't buzzing. You're 100% right. I think that's just a questionable decision again. On the topic of Alek Manoah, the location part is such a huge thing. And you said it pretty well, where if he's missing, putting that slider outside of the zone or something, it's great. That's where you want that pitch. But too far out of the zone, and if it's consistently too far out of the zone, then they have nothing. They don't have to worry about the outside of the zone pitches. They just wait for something middle, and crush it. because they know if it's going to be close, it's going to be in the strike zone. If it's going to be outside, it's going to be really outside. And I think that's the problem with him right now. We got a ton more to get into here, Carter, just a ton. There's so many plays from this weekend, and we always say we're going to try to keep everything short, but then there's so many games to go over when it's a Monday coming off a weekend series. So we'll go over game 1 and game 2 of this series.
Before we do head out, I want to say one more thing about Alek Manoah, because there was one thing that he did a lot differently. I think this is a major contributor to why he was so effective today. So in his first game against the Nationals, he threw one changeup in that entire start.
Yeah.
In this game, he threw 19 changeups. And the changeup was another pitch that worked very well for him. So just having a fourth pitch for Alek Manoah to be able to throw effectively, other than to Carlos Santana, that one pitch, that was a huge success rate for him. And Alek Manoah, as we've said before, it's never a thing with his break, with his movement on pitches, because his sinker is disgusting. His slider, when he's got it on, it breaks off the face of the earth. It's very hard to hit. So Alek Manoah, again, biggest thing is always his command. If he can command the baseball, he's going to be very effective for the Blue Jays. And that's exactly why we said we shouldn't trade Alek Manoah, because the stuff is there. His value has never been lower, maybe a little higher after this game. But I still believe in Alek Manoah. We'll see what happens, I guess, the next start. It's the way it looks right now is we're going to be seeing him in that Tampa Bay Rays series live, actually. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, that is going to be huge. And you brought up the changeup. And an interesting statistic here. Again, not a statistics guy, but here's one for you. In the year that he was third in a Cy Young votes, he threw his changeup 12.5 or 12.4% of the time, I believe. And this year, or the last year and the beginning of this year, he stopped throwing the changeup as often, and he's brought it back into this game. And look what happens when he brings that changeup back in the game. So I thought that was a very a pointed answer from you, I'll say, because that's 100% right. It's that extra wrinkle to an already pretty elite set of skills of being able to put a ton of break on his pitches, and we can get that extra one. It's something else people have to look for. And in a guy that could use all the help he can get right now, throwing that changeup, throwing that extra pitch, having one more thing for these guys to worry about is fantastic for Alek Manoah. But anyway,
I got one more thing.
Okay.
Last thing about Alek Manoah. I know it's very early, but I just want to know how you're feeling about Alek Manoah. What's your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10 for Alek Manoah in his next start?
This doesn't do anything for me, to be honest with you. Until I see 3-4 games of him pitching decent. Again, it doesn't have to be as good as it was today or yesterday, but it's got to be better than that first game. So it's tough. I think if I see 2 or 3 more from him, somewhat close to today or yesterday, he might start getting me back. But as of right now, nothing has changed. Everybody can go out and have Alek Manoah. We've seen him have in AAA have one good start, and then everybody on Twitter's or the Blue Jays are trying to hype up the comeback of Alek Manoah. In his next 2 starts, he does just horribly. So we'll see. That's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, I'd say before this start here, I was probably at like a 1 out of 10 for how confident I was in Alek Manoah. I'm not going to get too crazy with it because it is one start, but he looked absolutely disgusting today. So I'll say it's 3 out of 10. I'll give him 2 more points. I'm 3 out of 10 confident for Alek Manoah. Hopefully he can continue that against the struggling Rays team right now. We have a ton to talk about, obviously. Game 1, game 2, a bunch of storylines, a bunch of different news that happened this weekend. We'll get into all that coming up.
Today's episode brought to you by Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find their life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. I know I've said this before. I would really suggest looking into Policy Genius for your loved ones, your families. I know my parents are getting to that point that we got to start looking into that. Same with my grandparents. So as we continue, make sure you guys check out Policy Genius. It helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. You can talk with their team of award-winning agents who will make the walkthrough process easy and step-by-step. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentives to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. So I know we talked a ton about Alek Manoah, but it sort of had to be addressed, Carter. I think you said you have a couple quick points here before we run through, of course, Saturday's game and Friday's game. It was a big day Saturday.
Yeah, so obviously that first segment was pretty much just Alek Manoah, and there was a lot to talk about. And one thing I didn't talk about is Alek Manoah's a new man. He's got cornrows now. Look at that. Maybe that's the thing you need, just a little hairstyle change to get the confidence up. Maybe he just wasn't feeling too good about himself. Had to get the self-confidence skyrocketed, and now it should even be better after that performance he had. I just want to say Vladdy has been absolutely ridiculous. Again, we only had 2 hits in the Manoah start. Vladdy gets one of them. He's hitting the ball hard everywhere. He's hitting like 450 in his last 7 games. Absolutely ridiculous from that guy. We already went to the Ernie Clement stuff. Not great. And the last thing I really wanted to get into was it just didn't make sense again. When you look at this bullpen, you have Alek Manoah, who looks great all day, 78 pitches through 7 innings. I don't hate going away from him. I understand. Like, you probably have a short leash with Alek Manoah. That does make sense to me. But you have Yimi Garcia available. It's a 3-1 game, and you decide to throw a guy who is used to having high leverage but has been struggling this entire season since he's been injured in the spring training. Obviously, a rough start to his season, as we said. But Erik Swanson, this guy, he's had a tough go. It's been very obvious. Anyone who has eyes can see that Erik Swanson's not pitching very well. And you have Yimi Garcia, who has like a 0.7 ERA, who is in the bullpen warming up with Erik Swanson side by side. For some reason, you decide to go to Erik Swanson. He gives up 2 runs. It's a 5-1 game. With the way the offense was playing, 2 runs is going to be tough to get, never mind 4.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest point. Don't get me wrong. And maybe that's what John Schneider thought, but I doubt that. I think you have to have confidence in your team that you can make those runs up. And I think by going to Swanson there and not Yimi Garcia, I think that sort of puts a stamp on the game. Like, okay, we know this is over. The offense just isn't showing up, which may be fair. Maybe that's a fair assessment because, yeah, this offense did absolutely nothing yesterday. But Carter, let's take a look at Saturday's ball game. An absolute slugfest. Probably the best baseball game the Toronto Blue Jays hitters have played all year. And honestly, the pitching wasn't horrible. Gausman, got lit up a little bit, which is tough to see, as we thought he was finally starting to, get out of sort of the slump he had at the beginning of the year. But, like we said, guys are allowed to have off days. Stuff like that does happen. And it just shows you that sometimes that your offense needs to come up and get you a win. And that's what happened. Saturday, the Blue Jays offense worked their butts off and got the Blue Jays a win. A much-needed victory, to say the least, because we narrowly avoided the sweep. Great day. Davis Schneider leading off. This was the day of the lineup change. Everybody, I think, was thrilled. I was watching Twitter and people like, finally, what's going on? Finally, it all happened, blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, we go back to Sunday now, looking back, and it wasn't a switch that lasted very long, which is crazy to me since Davis Schneider went 3 for 4 with 3 hits, 2 RBIs, and, of course, a home run. Then Dalton Varsho, 1 for 3. Vladdy, 4 for 5. JT had an iffy day, which I want to look into some more. I know Justin Turner hasn't been as lethal lately.
I got his last 7 here if you want me to get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah,
so Justin Turner, just with the eye test, we both kind of talked about it before this podcast. We both agreed Justin Turner hasn't looked great at the plate, especially from a production standpoint. This guy's still seeing a lot of pitches. He's fouling off, seems like 3 pitches per at-bat. But when you're looking at his production in the last 7, I'll even start with the last 15. So over his last 15, he has 57 at-bats, 11 hits, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, hitting 193 with a 207 OBP and a 316 slugging. And over the last 7 is really where I've started to notice it, especially in that Saturday game. So in his last 7, he has 30 at-bats, only 3 hits, 1 RBI with a .100 average, a .129 OBP, and a .1 slugging. It's a game. Baseball is a game of ups and downs. We see it. Justin Turner comes out hotter than ever, one of the best hitters to start out the first couple weeks, and then now you're starting to see his regression a little bit. Justin Turner was never going to hit 330, whatever he was starting to hit at the start of the season. You get Justin Turner at a 270, even a 265. I think his career average is around a 280, but he is 39, so you got to give him the benefit of the doubt there as well. If Justin Turner could just sit around, like I said, 270, I'm going to be happy with his production, but a little bit of a skid for Justin Turner right now.
Yeah, not ideal for sure, to say the least. But he's a guy that was proven that was the only pulse on this team for a while. So I think you have to sort of take him with the ups and downs that he's going to give you. Of course, Danny Jansen, 3 for 5, really good day, home run from him. Bo Bichette, 1 for 5 with a home run. Carter, you said 1 for 4 with a home run. You take? Are you going to take Bo Bichette's 1 for 5?
1 for 5, a little bit of a different story, but yeah, I'm still taking a home run, 1 for 5, especially from Bo Bichette. If you see any sort of offensive production for how his season has started, that's going to be a huge thing for Bo Bichette. And we saw him have a little bit of a better series. I believe he went 1 for 4 today with one of the only hits, with the other one being Vladdy. I think he was 2 for 4 on that Saturday. I'm trying to remember the stat line. So many hits.
One for 5 on the Saturday, and on the Friday
it was two hits on the Friday. I'm assuming then.
But yeah, he went 2 for 4 on the Friday. Yeah,
there it is. I knew he went 2 for 4 in there. So a pretty good weekend from Bo Bichette. Hopefully we see him start to get some production here. But again, I want to go over this lineup quickly. I know we always harp on the lineup, but again, when you look at the second game, the first time all season long you scored double-digit runs. Davis Schneider looks unreal in the leadoff spot. Vladdy 4 for 5. Even his out, he hit so hard. He hit every at bat he had. He hit over 95 miles per hour, which is absolutely ridiculous. But you have your best offensive game of the season. And what do? You throw George Springer back at the top of the order, and he goes 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts and has horrible at-bats. It just blows my mind. I'm going to bring it up every single time. I don't know how much longer you can wait for George Springer. John Schneider says he's going to stick it out. He's going to wait. George Springer is clearly hurting this team. It is not up for discussion. He is one of the worst hitters on this team. And again, you got to keep him in the order. You got to be able to rely on him down the stretch. But you move Bo Bichette down the order, and he was struggling. It helped him out a little bit. Less pressure on him. He has more people in front of him that kind of protect him in the lineup. Do the same thing with George Springer. Davis Schneider looks great. Dalton Varsho was having good at-bats. I don't necessarily want him 1, but I'd rather have him 1 than George Springer. Just give me something here. What's he thinking?
I don't know. And you know what? To the argument, they took George Springer out of the lineup completely on the Saturday, and they put in Kevin Biggio.
That's why he was sick Friday and Saturday. That's why they had both lineups were switched.
So Kevin Biggio comes in and pretty much does the job we need him to. He goes 1 for, I think it was 1 for 2 as well. And I mean, we got on him when we did the stats episode about him not having the greatest season, but maybe if he gets in with a little bit more playing time, you get Davis Schneider and Kevin Biggio and Dalton Varsho. I mean, it's not the most defensively sound outfield, but if these are the guys that are going to get you hits and get you in the ball game, then you got to roll with them. And not that I'm making the biggest push for Kevin Biggio to be there all season, but I don't hate switching it up. And if you have to sub out George Springer once in a blue moon, I think that's not a bad idea, especially the way he's playing lately. I know it all comes down to the lineup, and we get comments saying, well, if nobody hits, what does the switch in the lineup matter? And there's some validity to that. But at the end of the day, you've just stripped this team of all of its confidence that it just had. And that's where it comes down to. You come off a huge Saturday win with mass amounts of offense, switch the lineup, throw these guys off again. What do you expect is going to happen? You think Davis Schneider is going to go up to the plate with all the energy he's bringing from Saturday when he's hitting? What would he have been hitting? He would have been hitting
on Saturday. He hit first. On Sunday he hit 5th, and then I think it was first again on Friday.
Yeah, so it was 5th. Yeah, and so he comes off of 2 games where he's hitting 1. He has all the confidence in the world, and then he goes into Sunday's game getting dropped back to 5th. How do you think that is mentally for him?
He got demoted for going 3 for 4. That's what happened, which makes no sense whatsoever. I know we always harp about the lineup, but I do want to talk about Kevin Gausman a little bit and just how the Twins seem to just rake off of him every single time he pitches. If you remember last year, there was the Kevin Gausman tipping scandal, and that was against the Minnesota Twins. They were finding out when he was throwing the splitter, laying off of it, relying on the fastball because they're a very good fastball hitting team. So I have some Kevin Gausman stats since 2022 on the splitter. So this is Minnesota compared to the rest of the MLB. So on the splitter, Minnesota has an average of 306 off the splitter. The rest of MLB has an average of 187. Minnesota slugging is .472. The rest of the MLB is .283. Pretty big, significant gap there. Chase rate for the Twins, 31%. The rest of the MLB, 45.7%. So clearly, the Minnesota Twins, whatever they're doing, is working very well against Kevin Gausman. I don't even necessarily think Kevin Gausman pitched that bad. Like, his velo was good. His command wasn't that bad either. A lot of the times that he was getting rocked were on decent pitches, on corners. It's just the Twins, they have a great game plan against them. I'm not really worried about Kevin Gausman. He's our ace for a reason. He's going to figure it out. Just seemingly weird that the Twins just continue to rake off him every single time they see him, and especially Carlos Santana against this Blue Jays lineup.
Yeah, interesting, right? I think it's and maybe they found out something that the rest of the league hasn't, right? There is opportunities like that for teams to find something, and sometimes they don't share with some of the other teams. Sometimes they do. This seems to be one of those times where the Twins have found something on Kevin Gausman and haven't said a word to anybody else, which is a little bit interesting. But if that's the case, good on them, to be honest, because you can't pick apart somebody's routine completely and not have something that they're doing that maybe if 1 out of 30 teams is catching on to what you're doing, you're gonna take that, right?
Yeah,
If
100%.
if it's 16 teams catching on to something, that's a problem. But so I think it'll be really interesting to see how Kevin Gausman bounces back in his next start, which I think will be against the Rays when we're there, if I'm not correct.
It's probables. It should remain the same, but they do have an off day on Thursday unless they get absolutely ridiculous. It should be Gausman on the Friday, Manoah the Saturday, and Barrios the Sunday. So quite a good pitching split for us. I just want to say one more thing about Game 2. This is the first time that I've been very excited and happy watching the Toronto Blue Jays in a very long time. It seemed like whoever was coming up, you just knew they were going to do damage. The thing with Vladdy is, I remember him from 2021, 2022, not as much last year, not at all at the beginning of the season. Every time Vladdy used to come up, he would put fear into opposing pitchers, opposing teams' hearts. You would be scared every single time Vladimir Guerrero Jr. came up to the plate. This year, to start off, that was not the case. It's almost like Vladdy's coming up, automatic ground ball, automatic out. In this game, Vladdy, especially with a lot of players on this team, they came up and they looked like they were going to do damage. I was excited every single time Davis Schneider, Danny Jansen, Dalton Varsho, pretty much this entire lineup was coming up to the plate. And just looking at this lineup, I said at the beginning of this episode, I feel like, I know we lost the series 2-1, but I feel like there's a lot of positives on this team right now. I think Davis Schneider is hitting very well. Dalton Varsho's having good at-bats. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. looks absolutely ridiculous. Bo Bichette, I think he had a better series. Hopefully he continue that. Danny Jansen looks great. Kevin Biggio, again, looked really good.
Small sample size, but yeah.
IKF is raking baseballs. We'll go into Game 1 coming up, but it's like this lineup is raking. The only ones that haven't been raking recently is Kevin Kiermaier, who isn't playing a ton. Bogey, who almost never plays. I know a lot of people really hate on Bogey. I really want to get into him at some point this week, but we always have so much to talk about. Justin Turner, as we went over, and then George Springer, who is John Schneider, is continuing to make me hate because you love George Springer as a player, and people go through struggles all the time. If we would have Bo Bichette still in the 2 spot, I probably wouldn't like Bo Bichette too much either. So it's just a mismanaged situation in that sense. But then you look at all the starting pitchers this weekend other than Gausman. Kikuchi, 8 innings, as we'll get into as well. And then you have Alek Manoah, who look great. So I'm leaving this on a positive note. We do have the Baltimore Orioles coming up. But saying that, I guess we should get into Game 1. Pretty typical Toronto Blue Jays game. Not a lot of offense. Great starting pitching. Like I said, Yusei Kikuchi, unbelievable day. Where are you at with Game 1 here?
Game 1 seemed like the switch up to the lineup really affected certain guys. And I will say that with a little asterisk. Because I think when there's a bunch of things moving around, a bunch of different pieces that maybe we haven't seen this year in certain positions, yeah, things might not go great. And I think that was a perfect lead into Game 2. Guys were figuring stuff out. And you're right. That shouldn't change where you are in the lineup, but it does. Situations change, everything like that. And then we saw Game 2 that worked out, right? You let the guys figure some stuff out. Game 1 of the series, Game 2 of the series, they figured it out and they're rolling. Game 3, you sort of take them off a cliff again. But overall, I mean, great day from Yusei Kikuchi. It seems like that this guy is just going to be electric all year. I mean, 8 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 runs against, 3 strikeouts, gave up the home run, of course, but just a really good day. And then Nate Pearson and Cabrera just cleaned it up. I mean, obviously both giving up or Pearson giving up the one run. But other than that, I think it was just a really good game for the pitching staff. The hitters, obviously, like I said, I think it was just a lineup switch day that just sort of had everybody a little bit off their game. But I think it did the job in preparing them for game 2, and that's why they should have stuck with it for game 3. But I regress. We've talked it to death.
Yeah, this game was, again, we lose 3-2, and the offense doesn't do amazing. But I'm just going to break down this 9th inning here. So, obviously, a little bit of a fake comeback, you could say, but also very unlucky. IKF, I just want to point this out with Kevin Biggio being on first base. IKF hits a ground ball that in most scenarios is probably the end of the game. But Kevin Biggio does a little shuffle step in front of Carlos Santana, takes away the sightline from the baseball, and then quickly gets out of the way at the last moment. Carlos Santana just tries to react to catch this ball, and he's just not close. Great play by Kevin Biggio. As you know, we played baseball growing up, obviously not at the same level as these guys. But if there's somebody dancing around in front of you when you're trying to feel the baseball, it's pretty hard to stay focused on the baseball.
It's pretty hard to feel a baseball on most days, never mind when somebody's dancing around in front of you.
100%. So, again, that's a huge play by Kevin Biggio. Just shows how smart he is in the game of baseball. And just the way the game ended. Ernie Clement comes up. Runners, I believe, on third and first. He smokes a ball, like kills it. It hits the pitcher, and somehow it bounces straight to first base. Yeah. That ball goes anywhere else, it's a tie game. Who knows what happens? So a little bit of unluckiness here. Yusei Kikuchi, I mean, it must suck being a starting pitcher on the Toronto Blue Jays. You go 8 innings, you get a loss and 2 earned runs. Like I'm going into the dugout after the game, and I'm slapping the entire offense. Whack, whack, whack. All of them, back to back to back. Yes, just tough scenes for Yusei Kikuchi, but he's been absolutely unbelievable this season. Nothing bad to say about Yusei Kikuchi. And again, I'm still pretty positive. I got a positive outlook, even though we did lose the series. Not going to get it easier with the Baltimore Orioles coming up. But my biggest thing is the lineup's got to switch. And then hopefully the offense, Vladdy, continues to show up. If you actually put out a good lineup, I think we can definitely be competitive with the Baltimore Orioles in this series.
I agree. And I got to say something because we didn't address it coming into this segment. We're both wearing Vancouver Canucks jerseys right now because it is middle of game 3 and we're trying to watch some of it. So we're sort of like in and out. And we're super, big fans. So we had to throw in the jerseys.
Yeah, we did the first segment before the game. Second segment is going in the first intermission. The third segment's probably going to be in the second intermission. So
yeah. But in saying that, we want to get to that third segment. We got a Baltimore Orioles series to preview, and we got to give you guys our picks because I don't know. I think we're still tied, Carter, I would assume. And
I'll have to look in it.
Well, yeah, we'll look into it.
We'll see.
And then, Carter, I'm going to remember to mention the 24-hour streaming service. Locked On has a 24-hour streaming service available on YouTube and the Fire TV's channels app. You guys can go check that out any time of day, whenever you want to digest your content. It's free and available for you guys. Highly suggest doing that as there's NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. They cover all of it. So go check that out, and we'll be back with segment 3 right away.
Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling against thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in as little as 60 seconds. So I've kind of been rolling with the same sort of stuff on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to do that because it has been working. Hammer less than Springer fantasy line every single time. So you know what's going to happen. I'm hammering less than on Springer at 6. They dropped him down finally. We're big Davis Schneider guys on this podcast. I'm going to roll with my guy. I got more than Davis Schneider hitter fantasy points at 6.5. But PrizePicks is also doing this cool thing where they're giving you a free line pretty much, as long as Caitlin Clark doesn't get hit by a bus on the way to the game or something like that. They're giving you a 0.5 points for Caitlin Clark. So might as well hammer that. That's free money on PrizePicks. If you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. Download PrizePicks and start making your picks today. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
All right. Well, as you guys know, we are watching the Canucks game as we're doing this, and the Canucks up 4-2 going into the third, looking good. But, Carter, we got something, well, I don't know if it's more important. We got a Blue Jays series against the Orioles coming up. And how are we looking in our predictions so far?
So for our predictions, you had a series win. I also had a series win, but we had it in a little bit of different ways. You had a win, a loss, and I had a loss, a win, and a win. I thought I was going to be perfect the way Alek Manoah was pitching, but unfortunately, the error from Ernie Clement and then that Carlos Santana home run. So we both end up getting 2 points from this series for predicting 2 of the games right. We missed out on the series, and obviously we predicted one of the games wrong. We were at 22-22, and we are still tied. Now we're at 24-24. So I'm going to go over these pitching probables quickly here. Going to be some tough matchups for the Blue Jays here. So game 1, absolute dogfight. Jose Barrios, Corbin Burns. That's going to be a battle. Then after that, it's Chris Bassett. I believe it is Kyle Bradish. And then for the third game, it will be Yusei Kikuchi against Cole Irvin. So, Braden, I'm going to give it to you. Orioles, tough team, one of the best teams in the AL. What do you got for the Blue Jays?
All right. Well, like I said, there's a lot of negativity around the Blue Jays right now, and I'm trying to bring a touch of positivity. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 series win for the Toronto Blue Jays. A little bit ballsy, but I got to go it. I'm going a Jose Barrios win in game 1, a Chris Bassett loss in game 2, and a Yusei Kikuchi win in game 3. So 2-1 Blue Jays. I'm taking a win, a loss, a win.
Okay, I know I've said I feel positive about this series, but the Baltimore Orioles are a very good team. They got very good pitchers on that team. So with Corbin Burns, I don't really see the Blue Jays touching this guy. So I'm going to give them a loss in this first game. Second game, Chris Bassett versus Kyle Bradish. Just by the numbers, Kyle Bradish has been the better pitcher this year. Not saying that Chris Bassett is not a good pitcher, but again, going to be a tough matchup here. I think Chris Bassett gets hit around a little bit in this game. So unfortunately, I have a loss here, and that means the Blue Jays will not be winning another series in a row. But I am giving them the win for Yusei Kikuchi. I love that matchup. Yusei left-handers against the Baltimore Orioles. I know there are a couple players on that team that mash lefties, but Yusei Kikuchi is just so dialed that's not going to matter. We're going to win that game, but unfortunately, a tough series loss to the Baltimore Orioles, 2-1.
That is fair. It is going to be an interesting series. We got 2 tough series coming up against the Orioles. And then, of course, Carter, the series we're all there for, the Tampa Bay Rays. And like we said, we're headed off to Toronto, May 17th to the 20th. Catch us down there. We're going to be doing a bunch of content. We're going to be trying to get some cool TikToks and stuff going. So we'll try to get some of you fans of this podcast, hopefully on some of the TikToks, answering some of our questions. We're not doing trivia. Maybe we'll do some trivia. I don't think we're doing trivia. I think we're just going to ask you feelings, thoughts about certain players, and you guys can give us the answers. Give us how you're feeling about the teams. Leave comments as always here on YouTube, and check out all of our other content at Locked On Blue Jays on TikTok and Instagram. So as you guys can follow us on Twitter, Braden 5 Wasko, Carter First 2, and Carter. We have to mention our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel.
Yeah, you're 2 for 2 today. I think that's the first time, maybe ever, that you remember both of them. So obviously,
Thanks.
Locked On 24/7 streaming channel, either on Locked On Sports Today or the Amazon Fire TV's channel app. Either or, all the sports going on. A ton to look at, a ton to digest from our Locked On experts. So you can go to either one of those channels. Which one is more convenient for you? Have it on all day. You might as well. Something for background noise. I got nothing else. I mean, honestly, tough series ahead. I'm excited for Toronto. We'll see what happens. I hope I get proved wrong. I hope Vladdy continues to rake. I hope John Schneider, it's not going to happen, but I hope he switches the batting order back to that Friday, Saturday. I think we had some magic there. For some reason, he's not seeing it. I don't understand why. I'm going to harp on this until he switches something because it's the most obvious thing to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And like we said, we are also going live on the Saturday from probably our hotel room outside of Rogers. So it'll be a fun weekend for everybody. We hope we're just going to absolutely destroy YouTube and everything with the amount of content that we're pushing out. But we want to do it. It's fun. We have a great time talking Blue Jays, and that's what we're going to do this entire week and rolling into the weekend. So we're going to have some fun there. We want to thank you guys, as always, for watching, and stay tuned for more this coming week.